Recording live in the Lucky Number 7 Lounge, this is Dine, Drink Vegas, the podcast by and for everybody stuck at home, wishing they were in the land of neon lights and bad decisions. And you have stumbled across episode number 94, wherein Bill picked the tasty, yet surprisingly not leader in the luxury loungy booze. And we're going to bring you Las Vegas news, plus my trip review for my outing with my wife to the south end of the strip. But before we can bring you any of that premium, top shelf, amazing, and free Las Vegas travel content, we've got to bring in the founder of Dine, Drink, Travel, and Dine, Drink Vegas himself. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I mean the high roller, formerly of the High Plains, the leader in the luxury lounge, the king of comps, the Alabama slammer, the man who is always waiting on that limo to take him to his next luxury destination. I mean Bill. Good evening, Bill.
Rum.
Oh,
right. And how are you? Do you have rum?
I'm doing good. I have rum. I do have rum. It reminds me, have you ever seen the movie Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead?
Would it involve drinking rum?
They greet each other with boat drinks.
Huh. I could dig that.
And it's about mobsters who live in Denver.
Except, well, they're dead. So did they really live in Denver, or did they just inhabit it?
Well, they don't start dead, but that's kind of how the movie goes. They sort of tell you up front in the movie how things are going to turn out.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm here for that. But as, you know, once they're deceased, they have boat drinks. Should we introduce our drink of the day for our listeners?
Bill, I'm going to let you, because this is a you-ism that sounds like a me-ism.
Yeah, every now and again we flip roles, but that's because neither of our roles is as complete as you might imagine. So we are recording this on Tuesday, July the 7th, to release on probably the subsequent Friday. But this previous weekend was Independence Day. By the way, John, grammatical gripe, I always call it Independence Day and not the 4th of July. We don't call Christmas December the 25th, and we don't call Thanksgiving the 4th Thursday in November, right? We don't call any other holiday by its date on the calendar. So this weekend was Independence Day, rather a large anniversary. And I may have had some beer. And after having consumed some beer, my buddy PJ, at whose house I was, came out to me and said, "Bill, do you want a Trash Colada?" And I was still just with it enough to ask him what that was. And he explained that it was a hurry-up version of a pina colada where you pour pineapple soda, he had Fanta, and then whatever coconut rum you have in a glass. And for once, John, I came up with a drink that I don't measure. Right, I just pour it in a glass and go, because this drink goes down like a fat kid on a seesaw.
Well, that's pretty awesome, and sometimes measuring with your heart is right. By the way, Bill, I know why we say July 4th instead of Independence Day.
Why do we say that?
Well, there's several complexities. First of all, they actually vote to authorize the declaration on July 2nd. Most of the signatures don't get on until well after July 4th. July 4th is the date on the document, but we don't actually win our independence until September of 1783, which is 7 years later. So there are multiple days that Americans might call Independence Day. There's one July 4th, and that's what we put on the document, so good enough.
Yeah,
which I think is a statement about America.
Depending on one's religious perspective, one might give thanks every day of the year. One might celebrate the birth of the Christ child sometime other than the 25th of December. That is the day that we've chosen to acknowledge the independence of the United States, regardless of what the historical facts were. And I can't stress this enough, John, rum.
Rum. All right, Bill. So why don't you tell us which rum and soda you went with this time, because my version is a little more complicated.
So I went with some Fanta pineapple soda, and I went with the Bacardi coconut rum for the very good reason of, in the local ABC store today, it was on sale. Also, I can't distinguish any of the various coconut rums I've tried from one another, and it is fantastic and tastes to me very much like a pina colada. Now, here's the problem. This is probably the most calorically dense drink I've ever had, right? If you pour, I don't know, let's call it 8 ounces of pineapple soda, that's 150 calories, plus a couple of shots of rum, and it's a particularly sweetened rum, you're talking pretty easily about a 300 or 400 calorie drink here that's nothing but pure sugar.
Yeah.
It is good, but it is not good for you.
So, as the local diabetic in this podcast, I went with the sparkling ice, which is one of those carbonated, vaguely fruity things that grocery stores sell. This at our United, but if you have an Albertsons or a Tom Thumb or whatever, they're all the same big freaking company. They sell it. Costco and Sam's sell it. I got the coconut pineapple version, so that's sugar free. And then for my rums, I went with a blend of Plantaray Stiggins pineapple, which is infused with pineapple staves, but they don't really add much sugar to it. And the Plantaray cut and dry, where they also infuse coconut and not much added sugar. So mine has almost no sugar, maybe 2-3 grams of sugar, maybe 15 calories, the whole thing.
So that sounds delicious, and that's absolutely the drink you had to make, right? Like you can't have the sugar. I will say mine tastes like something you pour quickly in the hotel room when you're about to roll up or down the Vegas Strip, or more to the point, Fremont, right?
Yeah, mine does too. I mean, because you can get these crystal ices at some of the shops on the Strip. Bill, mine is fine, but it lacks complexity. So you could see our listeners, but I bet our listeners know what I'm about to add to mine, because as it is, it's fine. It's just a little flat. There we go.
Listeners,
that's about
John,
what, 2 dashes of Angostura, Bill?
John is putting in Angostura, and his calling it 2 dashes is proof that at TCU they don't teach the advanced mathematical concept of 2.
Well, not in the theology department.
Okay, fair. But tell us, theology major, does that drink make you want to pray?
Yeah, I am very thankful to the Lord above, who gave us Angostura because he wanted things to have flavor. The Angostura does make a big difference with this. I will say I should not have used the coconut flavored rum when there was already coconut flavor in my sugar-free soda. That was a tactical error. I almost went with, they make that, the brand is Crush, as in Orange Crush. They make a pineapple crush packet. And you and I have done packet drinks before. I will make you do them again because I think they're good. You hated it. But I thought about doing the pineapple packet with club soda and then a coconut rum. But mine had a little too much coconut, and the Angostura has balanced that coconut out with some Christmas spices. It's quite lovely now.
So, John, while you are talking about your variation to the Trash Colada, I also made one after I introduced the drink. I poured in, let's call it a shot worth of a slightly aged, so a 7-year-old Florida Cagna rum, and adding that aged rum, it obviously doesn't take any sugar out of it. It adds sugar to it. It just cuts down on the sweetness of it. And now it is somehow even more delicious and tastes like something you might potentially get in a luxury lounge. So I don't know that the next time I'm in Vegas, I want to have soda and 2 kinds of rum in my room, but this is exactly the drink I want as I'm rolling down Fremont Street.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to have in your red Solo cup as you roll your way out of the property, so you have a nice traveler before you start buying the things they sell you. It's good to pregame.
Can I acknowledge one last thing, John?
Of course.
The cup that I have this in is from a restaurant that I will make you dine at sometime. It's called The Shed from Ocean Springs, Mississippi, which is a short drive from here, but it's a barbecue joint with psychedelic pigs posted everywhere. And I just feel like it's the right kind of cup for the drink that I'm having.
No, I think you made exactly the right choice. So, Bill, I think with no further ado, why don't we jump into some dining and drinking Las Vegas news?
Let's do it. Why don't you take the first story, John?
Fox 4 Las Vegas reports that the Sports Bra, what a name, a Portland-based sports bar dedicated exclusively to showing women's sports, has announced it will open a Las Vegas franchise in 2027. And earlier today, I saw on Twitter from Las Vegas locally, that is going to be located on the intersection of Paradise and Flamingo. So, Bill, if you think about, you don't like going there, but you know where the stage door is, you know where Ellis Island is. Just keep walking down Flamingo another block past Ellis Island and stage door, and you get to where this is going to be.
You know, I would actually go there. I don't watch a whole lot of women's sports, mostly because baseball and football are my two favorite sports. But I would absolutely go there either to watch a game or just to enjoy a beer and see whatever sports ball was on TV. That actually sounds like an interesting space I want to check out.
Yeah, I think softball season's perfect for that. Women's pro softball is not a bad watch. You can't always find it on TV, but I would give it a go for that.
I absolutely would give it a go. So, in other news, Rum and Scott at Vital Vegas, who we have somehow gotten 11 minutes into this podcast without quoting, tweeted that the new food court at off-strip local-centric Suncoast will open on July the 14th. The food court will share a similar array of options as the food court downtown at the Fremont, both properties being owned by Boyd Gaming. So, John, we've talked about this before on at least a dozen episodes of this podcast. But, for our listeners who are new to the show, tell us what you think about this new phenomenon in Vegas of food courts showing up everywhere, quite frequently where buffets used to be.
Yeah, and that is the case here. This is the former buffet space in there. So, my deal with buffets is this. I will go to a premium buffet that has really high quality offerings, but if the food level is going to be just a step above my local Golden Corral, I would rather have a food court because I don't want a whole lot of mediocre food. And the thing that a food court gives you that you could get from a buffet is you can order an appetizer, say you want an Asian appetizer, you want some dim sum or something like that. But then for your entree, you want some carved meat or a meat heavy thing. And then for dessert, you want ice cream or whatever. You can have multiple genres of food in one meal at a food court for roughly the price of a mid-tier buffet. But odds are the food quality is going to be better. The quantity is different. You might not get samples of 9 different dishes, but I like this better.
So I get your point, and I've eaten that way. I've eaten that way with you before, and I'll actually concede your point that the food quality is higher, but I finally figured out why it is that I like the mid-tier buffet more, and it's that I only have to stand in line to pay one time. Maybe I just perpetually go to the food halls at the wrong time, but I keep going where I have to stand in line to pay as if it was a buffet line, and I'm not going to do that at 2 or 3 different places for one meal.
Yeah, I get you, but most of the food courts, and I don't know if the Fremont and the Boyd properties have figured this out yet, but on the Strip, if you're at Proper Eats Food Hall, there's an ordering kiosk and you can order on your phone, so that there are ways to make that process work better. But I do concede that point. I don't want to stand in multiple lines. You have a point there.
All right. Well, fair enough. What else is going on, John?
The Review Journal's Neon blog says that tickets for November's annual pizza festival are on sale now. The event draws pizzaiolos from around the world to share their pies, swap stories, and basically geek out on everyone's favorite comfort food. Now, Bill, I don't know if you've caught any coverage of this. Every year, Food and Loathing in Las Vegas will do an episode where they record most of the show at the pizza festival. They talk about it 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after. Would the pizza festival pique your interest?
Absolutely. For one thing, the pizza in Vegas is just fantastic. And, I've gotten to the point where I've made enough trips to Vegas that going for a particular event appeals to me. And the pizza festival would absolutely be it. While I prefer to do luxury lounge sort of things, that doesn't have to be the only thing I do all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I do think that this particular festival now, I'm not going to get to go in the foreseeable future because it always happens when it's kind of prime time for the work that I do. So I'm not going to be able to get out there. But theoretically, if I could ever pull it off, I definitely would.
That sounds outstanding. Well, in terms of other events that might be worth going to Vegas for, Rum. And the Las Vegas Sun reports that country legends Rascal Flatts will be performing at the Coliseum at Caesars on December 5th during National Finals rodeo season. And right at the moment, John, the only reason I can think to not do that is that rum will probably not be the featured drink. But I will say that if you've never been to Vegas during NFR season, it is absolutely a phenomenal time to go. I guarantee you that Rascal Flatts will not be the only country act playing, and I understand that they're not the the variant of country that you prefer. They're actually not one of my favorite bands. I think what's significant about this is reminding our listeners that during National Finals Rodeo, you have some really high-end country acts that'll go to town, sometimes just pop up in restaurants like Gillies over at TI, and it's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't one of my favorite country acts by a long shot, but sure, if I got tickets cheap enough, I'd pop in and go.
All right.
Well, I'm going to jump on the next story because Bill jumped on. Listeners, if it sounded like Bill got to that last story quick, fast, and in a hurry, it's because he did not want to read this one.
No, but I will take the win where I can.
The Las Vegas Sun also reports that Thunder from Down Under has celebrated their 25th anniversary this past week. That's a quarter century of making bachelorette parties and girl trips misbehave in Las Vegas. Bill, you and I are not much on the burlesque type shows. And given that we are the old stodgy Protestant white Southern guys, we're especially not going to be big on this one. But still, you got to give credit to these gentlemen from the Thunder from Down Under for shaking their cans all these years.
John, I'm trying to figure out why nobody's yet offered to pay me similar amounts of money to do a similar kind of dance.
That is very true, Bill. It occurs to me that I've got a story next on the run sheet, but you have an update to that story. So how do you want to tackle this?
So you know what? We are going to do something live and on the air. So listeners, we had reported in a previous episode that Terribles had saved the town of Primm by buying the business from the previous owners. However, John and I have read contradictory things about how well that worked. So, John, why don't you do this? Because it's what you had read. I will then go to the source I read, and let's see if we can figure out live and on the air what the truth actually is.
Well, I will say the source I got this from was dated before your source. So the source I came across said that the takeover was successful, which is true. They got the regulatory permission and all of that. And as of July 1st, everything in Primm had stayed open. All 300 employees kept their job. It looked like things were smooth sailing. But Bill, what did you find?
So what I found was that listener, and my source was the Review Journal, I think. Let me go back onto the source.
Yeah, mine was Scott.
So. Yeah, so mine was Review Journal. Listeners, or rather visitors who showed up this weekend found the town completely shut down with the sign saying closed for patronage. Now, I'm looking right now at a story from the Reno Gazette-Journal, and it is dated July 7th. So it is dated today. And it says, after the previous operator of Primm's casino establishments offended in gambling sent a termination letter to employees in early May, Terribles, yada, yada, yada. This story seems to be saying Primm casinos to reopen as Terribles partners with families, saving 300 jobs. So it looks to me like they took over, then shut down for a while, then reopened. So, yay, there's at least some chance of those jobs getting saved. But gosh, it seems like a super rough start, doesn't it, John?
It does. And Scott at Vital Vegas says he gives the over-under on this about 9 months because Terribles doesn't have a great track record. They had done this in another outside of Las Vegas market, and things didn't go so well.
Huh. That is fair, and perhaps that means we both should have been paying more attention to the run sheet rather than the rum, but the rum is way more fun.
It is summertime, and that is rummer time, Bill.
Oh, well played, sir. Well, in other news, Scott, and casino and business news, Scott at Vital Vegas reports that the Skybeam atop Luxor is getting an upgrade with the ability to change colors. He expects red to be the first color they try out as they try to give the Sphere some competition in terms of free spectacles on or near the Strip. And John, I think this is cool. I would love to see it. I'm not sure it's fair to call that competition with the Sphere for spectacles on the Strip.
Probably not. I will say that when my wife and I were there last week, the red light had not been turned on. So apparently Roxanne got the message. If you're under 45, you have no idea what I just said. But it is, I will tell you that when you're on the South Strip, if you can see the Luxor from your hotel, that sky beam is pretty impressive. I would love to see it with other lights. Several people on Twitter have posted pictures with the red lights. So apparently this is now a thing. So yeah, it's not as cool as the Sphere, but it is cool. I will say that the Luxor light, when it goes full blast, is one of the few man-made lights you can actually see from orbit, which I think is outstanding.
So, given the location of that hotel next to the Vegas airport, like how do they avoid having that giant, light cause navigation problems for airplanes?
I'm guessing because the pilots are not like moths and they don't automatically go to the light, but I'm not sure.
Right, but if it's a giant beam, there are, you know what? I don't fly planes and I certainly shouldn't do it in my current state.
I'm going to trust that the people who fly planes are smarter than you and me. You know a lot of them. You would know whether or not that's true, but don't disabuse me of my fantasy just yet.
I won't until the next time you get on one.
So Scott from Vital Vegas, while we're ripping stories off from him, says based on a source he's talked to, he's 95% sure the Gold Spike's new owners will in fact restore gambling to the historic property. We've already reported that they still have a gambling license. It's just the previous owners weren't using it. They would bring in slot machines like once every, I think it's 18 months by regulation. They have to run some gambling. But Scott now believes that's going to happen. Now, if you think about where the Golden Spike is, Bill, that's on Ogden Street that runs parallel to Fremont Street. So if you think about it, you're going to have the Golden Spike. You're going to have the downtown Grand, and you're going to have Main Street all along Ogden. So you have three solid gambling options back there once this comes online. Three, assuming downtown Grand doesn't go out of business.
Based on my last time there, I kind of hope it does, but I love, I love anything which makes downtown even more of a center of gravity than it already was.
Yeah, I don't want the Grand to go out of business. I do want them to run shop better than they were the last time you and I stepped in there.
I think that is totally fair. Well, in our last story, before we get to Vegas Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Caesars announced that they are not going to have a second quarter earnings call pending their merger with Fertitta Entertainment. So, listeners, we had talked on previous episodes about Ambassador Tillman Fertitta's purchase of Caesars. I don't understand business law enough. It has been agreed to, but it is still in the various kind of closing processes you have to do. Given where they are, though, Caesars has decided that they're going to go private, so they're just going to go ahead and not have their second quarter earnings call, which, John, I take as a sign that their merger or Fertitta's purchase of them is pretty far down the road.
Yeah, I think now, we're past the go shop window. No other big bidders emerge that we're able to swoop in. I think this is as close to a done deal as it gets without actually being done. So barring anything unexpected, I think this closes within the next 6 months to a year. It's still going to be a slow process. There's 9 million layers of regulation between here and there. I also hear rumors that Tillman is looking at buying the dirt back as well.
Huh. That would be super expensive, but would ultimately give him much more control, and I kind of hope that happens.
Me too.
All right. Well, John, what is going on in wild and weird Las Vegas news?
According to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Clark County officials had an incredibly busy holiday weekend, announcing they confiscated nearly 700 pounds of illegal fireworks across the valley. Even worse, a youth sports center suffered over $250,000 in fire damage due to suspected illegal fireworks activity. Folks, don't play with fire in a place that has no water. Bill, I live in a drought-stricken land. You spend a lot of years out here. Yeah, I'm going to say that unless you live in a very moist environment, leave the fireworks to the pros.
You absolutely should. Also, 700, okay, I guess 700 pounds of fireworks isn't that much if it's across the entire valley. But still, I mean, this damage to the youth sports center shows the sort of harm that can happen very quickly. And I read several other stories about this. Like, it just blows my mind that people in the middle of a drought-stricken Las Vegas would do something like that. Now, people in my neighborhood blow up fireworks all the time, but it also rains 4 or 5 times a week. Nothing's catching. If you're in Vegas, it's catching fire.
Yeah, I think everybody in the Deep South has at least one uncle named Stubby who earned that nickname by jacking around with a bottle rocket. I think that's a rite of passage in the South.
It absolutely is. Shockingly, for as often as I hear firecrackers going off in my neighborhood, I don't hear the number of ambulance sirens you would expect to match that.
Yeah, maybe rednecks are getting smarter, or maybe we've just thinned the herd. I'm not sure which.
Whatever works.
Yeah. Hey, Earl, watch this. Hold my beer.
Well, John, that's it with our news for tonight, but we still got quite a bit to talk about. So you and your wife, Lori, recently made a trip to Las Vegas, and I'd like to talk about that and have our listeners, follow along for a minute, because I've seen some of the video of this, and it looks like it was a fun trip. You stayed at the W, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So they're in the middle of a lobby remodel. Like, how was that going?
So there's a lot of things that are closed off. The bar is closed, which is weird because it shows as the only food and drink venue on the property for the W, that and the coffee shop. Both the coffee shop and the bar were closed for most of our stay. The coffee shop reopened the day we were checking out. Now, the loss of the coffee shop wasn't all that bad because they were serving free coffee in the lobby, and I had VIP lounge access. More about that in a minute. But there was no dining and no bar and lounge open, and everything, like, they had very nice looking. It was the nicest construction scrim I've ever seen. It is the W. They took that serious. They made it look good, but it looks nothing like you and I remember from our last guys trip there. And during peak hours, the lobby was loud because they are doing serious work behind that scrim.
Huh. So you mentioned the VIP lounge. How is the VIP lounge there at the W?
So temporarily, they've taken about a third of what was the breakfast and lunch diner type restaurant and turned that into the VIP lounge area. And Bill, you will remember that VIP lounge was a dark little postage stamp, no seating. You could go in and get your snacks, but the seating was outside the doors of the lounge, and it did not feel very welcoming. Right? If you went in there to get a cup of coffee or grab a Coors Light out of the fridge or grab a little cup of snacks, you were almost on top of the workers. And even though the workers are very nice people, that space was so small, you almost got the feeling the workers resented you being in there because you were right in their workspace, and they can't have a conversation with their coworker without a customer in the VIP lounge in there. Well, moving it over to the restaurant space, they had seating for about 30 people in there. There was a good bit of space between the booth where the 3 VIP concierge workers are and the rest of the lounge. And that meant they didn't care if you wanted to go into the VIP lounge and have 2 or 3 glasses of wine and have snacks for a while. It was a very comfortable and inviting place to do so. The workers told me the plan is, after the remodel, to put them back in that postage stamp. I really hope MGM reconsiders. Bigger lounges are a good idea. Most of the MGM lounges are too cramped. Bellagio's about the only exception. I think MGM ought to give them a little more space in this remodel.
Yeah, most of the MGM lounges are very much places where you check in and check out. And sure, if you want to grab a cup of coffee, you can. Much like you, I would love to see that expanded. But John, if I know you had some meals planned for this trip. So, like, what were your best dining experiences?
So my wife and I had a whole lot of things planned that never happened for this trip. This is a trip where nothing we had scheduled except for Tuesday happened. When we arrived, we realized we were going to miss our window to do brunch at Border Grill, which, listeners, if you're ever in town on a Sunday, Border Grill brunch is one of the best in town. Well, I have some other favorites. Yeah. I mean, I love Bardot. I love hitting up either the Bucknell or the Wynn Buffet for a Sunday brunch. There's some great Sunday brunches in Vegas, but Border Grill may well be my favorite. We missed that So we decided we still wanted Mexican food. We wandered over in the shops at Mandalay, between Mandalay Bay and Luxor, to Husong's. Now, Bill, Husong's Cantina is a place you and I have both walked past a million times. I've never given it a second thought. I thought it was just going to be some kind of tourist trap place. It turns out Husong's is a fabled Baja California joint with locations in Southern California as well. They make really killer margaritas and palomas. Their food is excellent. My wife got some taquitos. I got the ceviche. It was one of the top 5 ceviches I've ever had in my life. It rivals ceviche I've had in the Yucatan, which is saying something. Turns out we've been sleeping on Husong's, Bill. That place is pretty excellent.
So, coming from anybody else, I would call BS, because coming from anybody else, be like, there's just no way that works out. But A, you've taken me to good Mexican food in Las Vegas, and B, I know where you live. You've got some regional credibility here. So, all right, I'll go check it out, because we will inevitably wind up staying somewhere near there again when our buddy Zero is like, no, we can only possibly stay at an MGM property because they'll give me a free room. Who cares whether or not they honor their deals with you?
Right. Yeah. And I will say, if you find yourself in that place and you don't want Rira, although let's be honest, Rira is always awesome. And I did eat there too. We'll get to that in a minute. Husong's is legitimately good Mexican food. It's not Tex-Mex. It's not authentic Mexican. It is Cali-Mex. But you know what? There's a lot of Mexicans in California. They know what they're doing. That was a good place. So that was what we did for our big meal on Sunday. We did wind up over at Ellis Island. I'll talk about the gambling later, but we went up to the rooftop deck and we had some entrees and snacks there and a couple of cocktails. Bill, that rooftop deck at Ellis Island, it is very much like your favorite rooftop deck at the Hotel Galvez in Galveston, except it's in Vegas. Very similar. Yeah. Similar layout, similar pricing, great view of the back of the strip.
Yeah, no. Your YouTube short of it is now on Dine, Drink, Travel, and it looks beautiful. I would absolutely love to check that out. But I want to go back for a second. You said we would get to talking about Reraw, but it's Reraw. Let's talk about it now. How many times did you stop through Reraw on this trip?
Just the once. We had Monday. I know. We had breakfast there on. I'm losing track of time. I believe, yeah, it was Monday morning. We went up there for breakfast, and it was everything you want Reraw to be. Really good Guinness. Had a really nice. I went with the full Irish fry up. Now they'll add beans at a cost, but an Irish fry up does not include beans. Beans is an English thing, but the Irish people who run Reraw are very accommodating. They will sell you the beans if you must, but just know a proper Irish fry up is without beans. Now, I will die on this hill that I do prefer American bacon to Irish rashers, but I do love Irish rashers too. I am multi-purpose on the bacon. It's like Canadian bacon, but it doesn't suck. Breakfast at Reraw was simply phenomenal. My wife just got an everything bagel and a dark and stormy, but she was very happy. She doesn't normally do breakfast, but we had that meal before we went out to the pool, and Reraw always hits. We were seated in the little snug in the front room. It's a great spot.
So I have, over the last 2.5 years, spent probably a total of 2 weeks in Ireland over 3 or 4 trips. And I tend to go for a full Irish breakfast pretty much every morning. And you are correct that beans aren't always present, but I bet they show up on about half of the Irish breakfast I've ordered in Ireland. Like, people talk about Ireland and England as these radically separate places which have never ever met one another. It turns out that there have been 1 or 2 trips across the Irish Sea over the course of the last couple thousand years, and those 2 islands have influenced one another fairly heavily. So sure, the beans may theoretically not be part of an Irish breakfast. I've eaten a ton of beans in Irish places.
All right, well, Bill, I'm gonna take your word on that, so I stand corrected on the bean issue. Later on Monday, for an early afternoon meal. So we skipped lunch because we had a very big breakfast. And then about 4 o'clock, we went over at to the Vanderpump. Now, we originally planned to do tiki bar stuff on Monday afternoon because I love tiki bars. But I got an email from Chase that I had a dining credit for my Sapphire credit card that was about to expire. Now, one of our listeners on Twitter called me out and said that Chase Sapphire rewards card does not sound baller on a budget. We're not going to do this episode, so I'm going to tease future episodes. But I want to do a deep dive onto both my Chase card and the MGM Iconic card because I have opinions on both. And I can make the case for both of them that baller on a budget can include a premium credit card if you use it. So we're going to put a pin in that. But long story short, because I am baller on a budget, if you have the premium credit card and they email you and say a dining credit is about to expire, you use that. So we got a table at Vanderpump a la Paris because my wife wanted to check it out. I will say the architecture of the space is beautiful. They have so many fake flowers in there. It feels a little bit like a Hobby Lobby threw up on a very pretty space. The food and drink options were excellent, but outrageously expensive. So I'm going to say this. I don't necessarily recommend the Vanderpump place. My wife and I, neither one watched Lisa Vanderpump's reality shows. We went to this place strictly because of the places that I had a dining credit for that had availability that day. We just decided to do that. Esther's Kitchen was booked. My wife is not a seafood person, so we didn't want to go do Nobu. So it made the most sense for my wife and I, given who had tables and who didn't, because several of the places had no availability that day, and we had to use the credit that day. So Vanderpump, very lovely. If you are big into reality TV and you like Lisa Vanderpump, roll in there. Just know you're going to pay $25 a cocktail. The food is very good, but it's not better than other places on and off the strip. You're going to pay outrageous prices for the food. We were out a grand total of $25 with tax and tip because we had a dining credit on our credit card. But I got to say, I don't really recommend it unless you want to spend money just to be at a celebrity place.
Huh. Well, John, let's move on from dining because if I know you...
Oh, I got one more that we got to talk about.
Okay.
One more dining we got to talk about. I apologize, Bill. This one's too good. Toca Madera, you would like this one.
Okay.
Bougie Mexican place between Aria and the Shops at Crystal. They do a happy hour every day, and they do Toca Tuesdays. Their cocktails are discounted. Their food is discounted. Bill, I had one of the best glasses of mezcal I've ever had. It is a brand called Bosal. It was delicious. We had some guacamole that was served with plantains. That was really delicious. Some of the bites were not that special, but they had these little tostadas made with short rib. Bill, that may have been some of the best single bite of Mexican food I've ever had. Toca Madera is not worth it at full menu prices, but baller on a budget tip. If you can get in there for happy hour or Toca Tuesdays, sit at the bar, get a couple appetizers and drinks. Not worth full price, but on sale, yeah, worth checking out.
So that's one of the great tips you've taught me over the course of this podcast and over the course of our decade of going to Vegas is always check out like the happy hour prices or the bar menu prices at whatever the restaurant is, because there are some amazingly good deals on absolutely top quality food.
Yeah, if you want that, like if you can't afford the $300 Mexican food meal, which even if I could, I grew up in a place where cheap Mexican food is all around me. I'm not paying $300 for two people to eat Mexican food. But if I can drop $110 and I've got a $30 credit because I use that in-kind app and I had a Costco credit card, we'll get into that on a later episode too. We were out of pocket, I think $85, and we had a fantastic late afternoon meal there, and we're still able to go on and get some more margaritas at other places. Highly recommended.
Mexican food is something you get from a dude with a cooler in his trunk and a transaction that looks like a drug deal. That's Mexican food.
No, I like that too. Don't get me wrong. But every now and then, bougie Mexican is okay.
All right. Well, John, you inevitably had a pool day on this trip. Tell us about that.
So we did the pool day without a cabana or a day bed, which is something I generally don't want to do. But again, there's budget in Baller on a Budget. If you want to get a cabana or a day bed on the strip, you really have to book way in advance because we didn't do that. And a day bed was going to be $500. A cabana was going to be $850. For two people, the value's just not there. So we went in and did the pool without a reservation, without a place to be. We wound up using the seating at the little bar and grill out there as our seating. We took our own inner tubes because they're $30 to buy inner tubes on site. We got them for $5 a pop on Amazon. Now, my wife, I won't call her cheap. Let's call her frugal. Her decision not to just give them away or sell them, she made us deflate them and pack them up. That was definitely unballer, but I love the woman. But other than that, the Mandalay Bay pool, that lazy river was a ton of fun. It was crowded, but we still had a great time. So if you can't get a cabana or the day bed, it's still worth going to the Mandalay pool. So if the budget says no day bed, no cabana, don't be afraid to go to Mandalay. They have places to sit in the shade for you.
Huh. Although I guess the downside of that pool day would be you had to look at her in a swimsuit rather than getting to look at me in a swimsuit, which is frankly just stunning.
I would rather not see you in a swimsuit if I could help it. Good Lord. All right. There's a reason that we don't release the video of this podcast. Neither of us are lookers.
Well, John, you talked earlier about Ellis Island. Did you gamble any while you were there?
Yeah, we went over to Ellis Island to gamble. I'm going to tell you, Ellis Island is so much fun. First of all, the people watching is amazing. I would say the crowd was probably 70% local and 30% tourist. They were running promotions every 10 minutes. You come up and you sign up and they're giving away this and giving away that. Somebody won a cruise. People want free play, every imaginable tax bracket that lives in the Las Vegas Valley was in that building. There were people of every walk of life, every skin color. It's a lot of fun. It's energetic. The remodel in there is just beautiful. The gambling odds are pretty good, although I will say video poker has tightened up all over the valley, which makes me sad. You can't find the really great pay tables very easily anymore. You really got to hunt. The slots were reasonably loose. Now, I'm not a big gambler, especially with my wife, because we just said she had to deflate to take inner tubes home that I spent $5 on Amazon. She's not going to let me roll $1,000 in a slot machine in her presence. So we didn't gamble a lot, but we left the building up about by $80. Had a phenomenal time upstairs. I think in the past you have not enjoyed Ellis Island. I think you got to give it a second go.
So you know what? You have actually convinced me, and I am 100% willing to do that. For one thing, it's been so long since I've been able to go to Vegas. I'll just go anywhere. But I will say I'm not going to Ellis Island on my own. Like I may get to go to Vegas in October. I don't think you're going to get to go. If I do get to go to Vegas in October, I'm not going to Ellis Island, but the next time you and I are there at the same time, yeah, we should definitely check it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to you. I wouldn't feel weird being at Ellis Island by myself. I've actually done that before, but yeah, however you do it, I think you need to give it another go. Listeners, if you've been hesitant because it's off the strip, it's worth checking out. And if I were a big gambler and I was going to risk a lot of money, the slots seemed looser. The table games were much more generous, better odds. You're better spending your money there than you are on the strip. It's worth the 10-minute walk or the 8-minute Lyft ride, Uber ride.
So, John, one of my favorite spots in Las Vegas is Rhythm and Riffs there inside the Mandalay Bay because it's a nice bar. I can get pretty decent drinks at prices that aren't particularly abusively obscene for Vegas. Also, there is a cigar store right by there, or a few feet from there, and they'll let you smoke cigars in the middle of the bar. Did you check out Rhythm and Riffs on this trip?
So we did, and I threw up a couple of short videos on TikTok at Dine Drink John, on Twitter at Dine Drink John. They had a band from the Live Music Society. Now, Live Music Society is actually a corporate music entity where they have, I don't know, probably 2-3 dozen musicians, and they will form ensembles or bands out of some number of their musicians and send them off to do bars, grills, weddings, corporate events, whatever. The group we had clearly is a group of musicians who play together at Mandalay with some frequency. I remember the last time you and I were there on a guys trip, wasn't it just a lady with a piano, and she was quite good. This was a full band. The highlight, though, if you go find my videos, there was a couple there celebrating their 55th wedding anniversary. They were older folks. He was wearing a hat. I don't know what vessel he was in the U.S. Navy because I couldn't get close enough to read his ball cap, but he is a U.S. Navy veteran. These people clearly fell in love in the age of disco. And even though they are well past the age of most people who would bother to dance, they were showing their disco moves out on the dance floor. Honestly, I'm not making fun of them. The old guy is probably in his 80s. He's got better dance moves than me. It was fun to watch them out there dancing and having a good time. I'm not claiming it's the best band I ever heard. It wasn't. I'm not claiming they were the best dancers I've ever seen. They weren't. But you know what? We had a heck of a time. You got to check that place out.
That is part of what's great about Vegas. So it's just watching other people have fun.
Yes. Yeah. I can just imagine the entertainment I provided to other people when I dance on Fremont Street.
I wish I had been there for that, but not as much as I wish I had been there the time that you got kicked out of karaoke.
Oh, I'm so glad my wife didn't take video of that. That was a good night. It was like 2 p.m. I said good night like it was nighttime. Yeah, I'm a little fuzzy on the details of the rest of that day because we got thrown out of that bar. We didn't quit going to bars.
Also, you and I have both been drinking rum for a while.
Rum.
Well, John, is it time to bring this episode into a reasonably smooth, if rum-free landing?
I think we should. Bill, why don't you tell the listeners where they can find more Dine Drink Vegas and Dine Drink Travel content?
Listeners, you can find us on YouTube at Dine Drink Travel, where we bring you short and focused videos to help you plan your next trip. Something like a 5 or 10 minute video on the favorite hotel rooms in Vegas. For that matter, my trips to Ireland, executive lounges in airports, or what it's like to fly places. You can also find me on essentially every social media platform at Dine Drink Travel. The most important of those, though, probably is X, because that's where you can find John, who may even show you a picture of how many bitters he just right now put into his drink.
I think I added just about a half ounce of bitters to my last 3 ounces of this cocktail. It is approaching Trinidad sour levels. If you would like to chit chat about all things Las Vegas, all things Texas, all things barbecue, even the Dallas Cowboys, please find me at Dine Drink John. I would love to chat you up. We're so glad you took the time to listen to us. If you've got friends that are planning a trip to Vegas or enemies that hate listening to old fat white Southern guys drink and talk, either way, take a link to this episode, throw it wherever you have social media, tweet it, Facebook it, get it out there, write the URL on the bathroom wall at your favorite truck stop. Do whatever you can to help us grow an audience so we can keep bringing you this amazing and free Las Vegas content. Thank you so much for listening, and until the next episode, happy travels. Do I like rum? Do I like rum? Hey, Bill, are we ready to record this thing?
I have rum.
I have rum.
Then we should probably record this thing.
I think we're the reason Jack Sparrow's rum is always gone.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
All right, here we go. 5, 4, 3.